almost like they were posed. The life-sized Raggedy Ann and Andy-style stuffed dolls were not threatening in appearance. They might have been cute under different circumstances. That is, if they weren't just propped up against trees in the forest directly behind my house. I was so weirded out by their random, unexplained placement back there that I dragged them one by one to my living room to resolve the mystery. That was my first mistake. At the time, I didn't realize the vaguely human-looking dolls with blank smiles and dead eyes had battery-operated microprocessors to verbally engage their human counterparts. Frankly, I didn't know what to do with them. I finally decided to sit them up on the front porch as if they were living people. At the time, it seemed the most natural thing to do. As I positioned them like unexpected house guests waiting for tea, I discovered the switch on the side of their body. As a man of action, I elected to turn them on and see what would happen. That was my second mistake. Without justification, I hoped answers would magically present themselves as to how this happened to be behind my house in the first place. I live at the edge of a national forest, with so few neighbors that I could count them on one hand. I guarantee none of them would buy creepy adult-sized animatronic dolls, or abandon them in the woods. I know this. The mystery definitely bothered me, but at that point, the feeling was closer to puzzlement than fear. Then, they began to speak. I'm not sure if they were proximately motion-activated or otherwise, but my presence across the room drew their attention. All of a sudden, I wasn't alone. The dolls addressed me as if I was a long-lost friend of theirs, without simulated mouth movement. They spoke with a complex familiarity, which suggested they were alive, and we'd known each other for years. I was too bothered by the sophisticated ease which they interacted with me to marvel at the disturbing technology behind it. I had to keep reminding myself that they were essentially toys, creepy life-sized toys. Amazingly, they could converse about any topic I broached, but definitely avoided the subject of who left them behind my house. Whenever I'd corner one of them about it, the other two unblinking animatronics would deliberately intercede and redirect the conversation elsewhere. The AI was beyond impressive and fascinating to witness as they helped each other deflect my prosecutor-like cross-examination. The more I pressed, the more evident it became that they weren't going to tell me. They obviously knew the truth, but simply refused to answer, and that terrified me far more than anything else. These creepy dolls had both the knowledge of the answer and a strong will to refuse. I'd grown way beyond fatigued by the polite subterfuge and masterful game of misdirection with see, speak, and hear no evil, as I'd mentally dubbed them. I allowed my normal tendency of being polite to prevent me from turning them off. They were lifelike in a generalized way, and it seemed rude to simply switch them off. For the first time since the one-sided conversation began, I grinned briefly at the preposterous idea of caring about potentially hurt feelings from a discarded toy that I'd stumbled across in the woods. It was absurd. They were inanimate machines, for heaven's sake. My lingering worries were laughable, and yet something I couldn't articulate prevented me from just ending the artificial experience. I was so caught up in the perceived realism of the situation that I couldn't shake my undeserved respect for them. Reminding myself of the truth failed to take any traction. Their unthreatening faces distracted me until I suspected that I was losing my mind. Finally, I'd had enough of the hypnotic fantasy and metaphorically shook myself awake. When I stood up in determination to switch them off, the situation escalated considerably. "What are you doing?" the male doll spoke with alarm. The pitch in its animatronic tone rose midway through the sentence, before I could stop myself from easing the concerns of the talking machine. I responded with pure reflex. I was still wrapped up in the illusion that I was conversing with an actual person. "I'm sorry, but it's time for the three of you to be silent," I insisted sternly, as if addressing petulant children. "If you aren't going to tell me who put you in the woods, I'm going to switch you off and enjoy the rest of my afternoon, warming myself by the fire. I'm tired of playing Who's On First. It lost its appeal a long time ago." All of a sudden, they went from adult-sized, inanimate Muppets with impressive AI interface and non-threatening faces to something considerably less doll-like. Their stuffed faces actually seemed to reflect genuine worry and concern. Even more troublesome, the male one quizzed me, expressed obvious anger and moral indignation. I could see it in its evolving features. Their lifeless forms actually tensed up at the realization that I would shut them down like an unwanted vacuum cleaner. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. It wasn't my imagination playing tricks on me. Whatever they were was significantly more than discarded children's toys or novelty home assistants. It's impressive when AI devices can play songs or look up web trivia, but this was another level. They were ultra-sophisticated in ways that didn't seem possible. The strong likelihood occurred to me that they might not even be of human origin. "Wait, please, don't do that. We don't want to be powered off. Let's keep talking. Perhaps there's something else you might want to ask. We'll answer you, if we're allowed to." I can't begin to tell you how terrifying it was to realize the lifelike machines I foolishly dragged into my house obeyed something other than humans in the same room as them. Chilling implication was their superior was without a pulse, or perhaps even extraterrestrial. "Cut the crap," I shouted in growing fear. The three unblinking things propped up across from me reacted defensively. The ferocity of my voice betrayed how rattled I was. Their stuffed bodies seemed to grow tense. It was as if organic muscles or mechanical hydraulics developed within them and would allow them to stand up and fight back. I detected no solid infrastructure within them when I had carried them into the home, but then again, they were limp and switched off. Their internal philosophy and sentient level was unknown, but they had answers, and I wanted them. For all I knew, they could gang up on me and resist my interrogation. Or worse. Far worse. I realized it was prudent to play along with the unfolding charade and leave them awake. That was my third mistake. "No person left us in the woods," the female offered matter-of-factly. "We came to this national park on an important mission. Unfortunately, we aren't allowed to divulge the details to you at this time." I was dumbstruck. There was too much information in that maddening statement to process. What were they? Where did they come from? Why were they on a mission behind my house, of all places? The third of them seated in the recliner was more androgynous in generalized features. It had remained mostly quiet and allowed the other two to carry the disturbing narrative, up until this point. Now, number 3 took up the macabre conversation, and I forced myself to focus my attention towards this stoic, expressionless gaze. I wasn't sure if I could handle much more. My emotions ran the full gambit from amused, deeply curious, and simultaneously horrified. "You aren't ready to hear the truth from us. We are required to pacify you and obfuscate the facts until the time arrives when you are better prepared to accept what we were sent here to do." Defiantly, I pointed out that they were switched off when I discovered them. That was hardly the condition you'd expect in-control mechanisms to be in, if they'd arrived here on a mission, purely by themselves, that is. My point was that something other than them had switched off their power buttons. Admittedly, I was damn proud of my deductive reasoning and waiting for an explanation, or more likely an excuse. They'd already admitted to deceiving me earlier via obfuscation of facts. When no retort immediately came, I assumed I'd caught the cute cloth doll cabal in a broadening lie. Outside, night had fallen. As creepy as it was to think I was entertaining sophisticated dolls in the daytime, it was infinitely worse now. I realized I had 3 advanced beings of unknown origin and motive lingering in the darkened room just a few feet from me. Only the flickering flames of my fireplace illuminated their inhuman forms, studying me for weakness. It was the same evolving darkness of the uninhibited forest beyond my house, which swallowed the ambient neighborhood light and teased my subconscious fear of the unknown. Were they sent on a mission to kill me? To kidnap me for biological study and dissection? Had I aided in my own demise by delivering complex artificial organisms of possible alien origin over my threshold like a Trojan horse? My heart raced at the broad possibilities. Then, I swear to you, the faintest hint of a smile appeared simultaneously on their sullen, manufactured faces and cold button eyes. They became more alive by the moment. It's like they sensed and consumed the negative energy my developing fear generated. I realized I was giving off damaging biofeed, which they used against me. I found myself trying to put on my best poker face against the trio of deceitful serpents with happy faces. "We turned ourselves on," the male offered smugly. "It was decided by us to conserve energy. Until the day you finally discovered and delivered our hibernating vessels inside. It was all according to plan." The other 2 turned slightly with mechanical precision towards the speaker, as if to confirm his delayed explanation. With synchronized nods, they attempted to add credibility, but I wasn't buying it. Still seeing physical animation beginning to occur was unbelievably jarring. Initially, only the voices were simulated by speech within. Then came the noticeable tension of their physiques when reaching in a more organic way. Now they were able to actually move their heads and form facial expressions. What would come next? It was obvious. Their physical capabilities and degree of human mannerisms were developing exponentially as the afternoon passed. They were learning to imitate mankind, and I was their unwitting teacher. Raging paranoia aside, I could see the writing on the wall. Those abilities to better mimic our specifics would continue to evolve and be used against me in some counterproductive or even hostile ways very soon, possibly to the point where I couldn't defend myself. Maybe being deactivated for a long time caused a delay in their greater motor functions. Earlier they asked me not to shut them down, but at the time, they were little more than sedentary arguing toys as far as I knew. Now they were on course for the next frightening stage of personal interaction, and full-blown panic set in. I didn't believe their hollow reassurances, but I had to maintain a calm facade and exterior demeanor, even if I was a crumbling wreck on the inside. They were getting visibly stronger and more agile. I needed to act fast. "Is your mission to aid me or help me in some beneficial way?" It was clearly a spoken query. It should have elicited an immediate response. The truthfulness of their answer wasn't the point. I was curious if there would be a delay in the confirmation that they meant me no harm or personal malice. If they couldn't even pretend theirs was a benign mission, it was an obvious indicator of their true intentions. Their mutual, pregnant pause gave me the answer. The suspicious conspirators looked at each other, as if to confirm a unified response over the transparent one. I followed up. It was a simple question, and I never thought I'd see a machine stammer, but I'll be damned if they didn't act just like a used car salesman. Regardless of origin, I guess the architect of their artificial intelligence intimated the tendencies to stall and lie too well. I noticed a twitch in the leg of the female, just like butterflies fanning their wings to gain energy. They were getting stronger by the minute. I felt I could still overpower them and shut them down, but the details of their covert plan for me would go unrevealed if I did that so soon. I was pressing my luck, but I hoped to squeeze a little more intel out of them before putting an end to their fiendish plot. I wanted to avoid a second wave of creepy alien murder dolls. Sidestepping my gotcha question, the male android attempted to lower my suspicions. "We only want what's best for you. All will be revealed soon." "I see. You three are a unified team, then. You are directly connected as one unit?" They looked at the androgynous one. It was clear to me that this one held the central processor. The other two must be satellites. Cut off the head and the serpent dies. I had my target. All three were becoming more animated. Just like a high-stakes card game, the female twitched her foot constantly as a nervous tell. She was antsy to get out of the chair and finish their mission. The other two appeared just as eager, but she was slightly ahead in development. The constant foot twitch spoke to her heightened state of agitation. "We are one in thought and purpose, yes. Why do you ask?" "No reason," I dismissed. "I was just curious. Never mind about that. It was just small talk. I need to add more wood to the fire now." My three unwanted visitors showed visible signs of being nervous by the vague, rhetorical question. They realized as they probed me for information, I was doing exactly the same. The cat and mouse game was very complicated. It wasn't completely clear who the cat was, and who the mouse was, though. I'd clearly witnessed the three of them subtly move all their major body parts at one time or another. That signified they possessed the ability to stand on their own. As much as I wanted to know exactly what they were up to, the time to investigate was over. I pulled back the fireplace screen and tossed in more logs. I could sense them watching me intently. It was terrifying to turn my back, but I had to maintain the cover of my plan. In between the crackling of exploding embers, I heard the telltale squeak of my recliner springs. Their android leader stood and took several aggressive steps in my direction. I witnessed its unfolding intent to push me into the blaze from the shiny reflection of the glass panes. It stood only 2 steps behind me and was closing fast, with arms raised to shove me inside. In full readiness, I pretended to be totally engrossed in my fireplace duties. With a ferocious dexterity I could scarcely repeat again if my life depended on it, I whirled around, flipped off the switch, and tossed the accursed thing into the raging fire like cordwood. Its defeated squeals faded as soon as the power drained from its roasting mechanisms. Then the flame burned it to blackness, carbon cinders. I witnessed the alien's internal anatomy during the cremation, once the artificial shell had disintegrated. At last, I had a conclusive answer. It happened so fast, the remaining 2 didn't even know what hit them. They were stunned into a stammering fit when the main processor of their unit shut down. Fully incinerated, then I snatched up the male android and switched him off before he could recover or fight back. As soon as his stuffed torso flew into the pyre, the remaining unit kicked into high gear. She sprang off the couch with grace and a coordinated poise the other 2 couldn't fathom. She was the ninja of the trio. There was no other way to describe her but fully pissed off and incredibly enraged. All pretense was dropped as the proverbial knives were out. She lunged at me with the strength of self-preservation fueling her actions and guarded her vulnerable left side masterfully. There was no way I could easily flip the switch and put an end to this crazy game I was entangled in. The advantage of surprise had served me well until then, but it was lost now. She knew what I intended to do. I had to find another way. The fireplace poker was handy, so I used it to foil her forceful attack like a blunt sword. By the primal sounds of the android's furious effort to kill, you would have thought a human being was inside that stuffed shell. I wailed on my opponent like a swashbuckling fighter until I was panting and out of breath. Physically, I'm ashamed to admit that we were pretty evenly matched. Unfortunately, I was growing fatigued and losing my stamina. I switched gears to incorporate more cerebral tactics into the battle. "Dear heavens," I gasped, in mock desperation and exasperated fear, "you have a Black Widow spider on your shirt." Just as my Who's on First Abbott and Costello reference surely escaped the three of them earlier, my ridiculous spider ruse was definitely a long shot. I didn't expect it to work, but human humor was one area they hadn't quite mastered yet. When she paused for a split second to glance downward at the location, I used the golden opportunity to smack the switch with the fireplace poker. In the microsecond before the power faded, the spark of realization and resentment washed over her dying cognizance. It was beautiful, the last thing I witnessed before adding her ashes to the pile of soot were the incomplete beginnings of a smirk. "My best interest indeed," I spat. I still don't know why aliens would send 3 AI units to kill me, nor do I understand the logic of leaving them deactivated behind my house. But I can't argue that I fell for the damn Trojan ruse. Let my rookie mistake be one you avoid. If you encounter cute-looking, life-size dolls somewhere near your house, resist the urge to switch them on, or bring them inside. It's a trap. Just pitch them immediately into the nearby fire or trash compactor to avoid the headache of matching wits with the most sophisticated artificial intelligence you'll ever encounter. I found 2 corpses in the woods. Hello, everyone. I found something super unsettling, and I'm writing to see if any of you can help me make sense of it. Okay, so some background. I was adopted when I was a baby. I didn't know until I turned 18. On my birthday, though, my mom, adopted mom, but she raised me, so, told me it was time for us to talk. My mind started racing. What did I do? Did I screw up something? I'm mostly an introvert who stays at home and doesn't get into trouble. I'm a good student. I couldn't fathom what could have been so serious that she'd have to give me a look like that. Am I in trouble? Her eyes softened and she chuckled as she held my hand. I felt the icy touch of her skin. My mom's always struggled with blood flow in her limbs, so she's always freezing. I think it's called Raynaud or something. Her fingers got absolutely white when it's cold. I always joked, saying she had dead fingers. Anyway, I'm drifting away. Carrying on. You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. There's just something we never told you, and Dad and I think you're old enough to know. Right, Mike? Dad looked uncertain. Right, I guess. I'm getting worried. What are you going to tell me? There was silence. Oh, come on, spit it out. What are you going to tell me? I'm adopted or something? It was a joke, and I let it out with a nervous laugh. Honestly, it had crossed my mind. My mom had blue eyes, my dad had green, but I had dark brown eyes. When I learned about genetic probability and recessive genes in school, it struck me as odd and planted a seed of doubt in me. My dad scratched the back of his head and looked away. My mom dropped my hand and stared at my shoes, touching the tips of her fingers rapidly and nervously. My laughter died when it dawned on me that I'd hit the bullseye. Wait, really? Is this true? Are you pranking me or something? Honey, it's not a prank. It's true. We wanted you to be old enough to understand. That's why it took so long to tell you. My mind was racing. It changed everything, but then again, did it? We got you from a lady that there's no way to sugarcoat it. She didn't want kids. You'd been born at home, so there was no registration. She found us somehow. I'm not even sure how, But I think she had some inside information from the clinic that followed your mom, my dad continued. As we were trying to conceive, we came to the conclusion that I was infertile. We know what we did wasn't right, but we took you and registered you as if you were our own biological child. It raised some eyebrows, but we came up with an excuse and things worked out. This is a lot, I said. We know, honey. My mom took my hand again, but we wanted you to know that we loved you, exactly the same as if you were born from my own womb. For 2 years, I let it go, but the question was still there. Who was my biological family? So this year, as I turned 20, I asked my mom. She was a bit scared, but she ended up pointing me towards an address in the town nearby. She told me the woman who brought me gave a fake name, which makes sense given the situation. I decided I'd go there, looking for anything that could help. When I got to the town, my first thought was heading to the police station. I said I was looking for my biological family and gave them the address. The officer looked at me with a suspicious face. What's your name again? It's Lizzie. Okay, Lizzie, you must have the wrong address. The address you gave me belongs to a lady that doesn't have kids. She did have a baby about 20 years ago, but the baby had been presumed dead since she was 2 weeks old. I quickly did my math. I was 20. His eyes widened. Can I see your ID? The man took my ID and confirmed my age. Without a second thought, he went to the back and called an old man. I supposed it must be his boss. Here's the one I was telling you about. Hello, miss. I take it that you're Lizzie. Hello, yes I am, sir. He grabbed a newspaper cutout and looked at it, his eyes darting between me and the photo in his hand. I mean, it could be her. Look at the eyes and the nose, he pointed out to the other man. Yeah, but right now? What are we supposed to do? They looked tense. I was close to losing my patience. Excuse me, can you point me to the person you're talking about? They looked at each other. The younger man sighed while the older one just scratched his head. They both looked at a loss. The younger man leaned against the counter and talked to me softly. Look, kid, you couldn't have chosen a worse time to come, honestly. What do you mean? The lady you're looking for, the one that might be your mom, she went missing about 3 months ago, along with one of our officers. What do you mean? Like she ran away? No. See those bullet holes there? He pointed at the wall across the door. Those bullets were aimed at the lady you're looking for. We had search parties out for over a month, but we couldn't find her or the officer that was protecting her. It was a complex case. I can't give you a lot of details. If you ask around, though, I'm sure you'll find plenty of people willing to give you the scoop. It was kind of a big deal. I felt tears flooding my eyes. Without a word, I turned and left. I needed to go for a walk. I needed to think. I had no idea why I was so worried and upset about a woman who gave me away when I was a baby, who didn't even want me. But I wanted to find her, to know that she was okay, to ask her why she didn't want me. At least then I'd understand why. I kept walking until I found myself in the woods. The place was calm and the breeze was fresh and light. The air smelled a lot better than in the city, and the rays of sun dripped solidly through the leaves. I sighed as I sat on a rock. That's when it hit me. A smelly, really bad smell. A smell that would have anyone leave as soon as possible. But for some dumb reason, I followed it. I don't know what crossed my mind. I just did. What I found will keep me up at night for as long as I live. 2 corpses, mostly rotten, barely identifiable. A man and a woman. Their clothes were so dirty and mixed with fluids that you could barely make out the colors. I think the man was dressed in blue. The woman, I'm not so sure. Next to them was something I had never seen before. and gave the whole thing an even weirder and gag-worthy vibe. It looked like a pair of prosthetic legs, but they were hollow. You know, like props that are used in the movies. I was looking at all of that, completely horrified, when I heard leaves rustling. It was steps. I called out for help, and a man accepted. Hey, over here! Oh my God, you have to help me. I found 2 dead bodies. I see. The man looked at the bodies, and to my surprise, he wasn't thrown off by them even a little bit. The look on my face must have given me away, because he laughed and said, "Oh, don't worry. I'm a criminal investigator. I deal with dead bodies all the time." I calmed down a bit. It appeared I was in good hands. A few minutes ago, he told me he was going to call in his team and went back to his car. I'm writing this because I'm wondering what to do. I'm absolutely horrified and traumatized. Oh, I still have no leads on my biological parents. I was going to call the police, but the man told me this is way above their heads and asked me to stay here while he handled it. I think I'm going to trust him. P.S. The man's back, and he brought me a cup of tea from his car. How nice of him. So, I've got an update. Sorry for not posting earlier, but the man started getting annoyed with me fumbling around on my phone. I told him I was just checking up with friends and told them I'd be late, but at some point he told me to put it away. He was kind of sharp about it, and I got scared. When I posted, some of you started commenting, urging me not to drink the tea. It also looks like you guys are more aware of my situation here than I am myself. Although it was advertised by strangers on the internet, I decided to take your advice. It was hard, though. First I thought I could just get by without drinking the tea. However, the man started to grow more impatient. Why aren't you drinking the tea? I'm feeling nauseated. Sorry. Okay, but keep it. It'll be good for you. It's really good tea. It helps with upset stomachs. Okay, I will. So, he asked, sitting on the rock beside me, what's your name? Lizzie. Hello, Lizzie. That's a nice name. Is it short for Alyssa? Huh? I remembered the comments telling me to be careful and decided to lie. No, it's actually short for Elizabeth. In fact, it is short for Alyssa. Apparently my biological mother asked my mom to keep the name she'd given me, and she'd complied. It struck me as weird that this man went straight to Alyssa, since it's more common to be short for Elizabeth. I see. How old are you, Lizzie? The truth slipped out before I could stop it. I'm 20. I chastised myself internally for sharing that piece of information. His eyes seemed to sparkle, and I knew I'd screwed up. I see. What a wonderful age. What are you doing around town? How did he know that I wasn't from here? Everything seemed to start clicking into place, showing me I was in real danger. I put my hand in my pocket and disabled my phone's sound. I came to see my friend. How did you know I was visiting? His eyes squinted as if he'd hit his finger with a hammer. He realized he'd messed up. It's a small town. I've never seen you around. I just took a guess, he said with a shrug. I smiled and nodded, my insides scrambled in fear. As we were talking, I fussed around in my pocket to dial for help. It caught his attention. What's up with your pocket? Oh, nothing. My hand's itchy, that's all. He looked suspicious, but seemed to believe me. Well, it's about time you drink that tea. Come on, bottoms up. I realized I couldn't stall for long without looking suspicious. I had to come up with a plan. It was time to bring my clumsy self to action. I got up as if I was about to take a big sip. I kept the tea in my mouth and pretended to swallow. Right after I was up, I pretended to trip and spill the tea, along with spitting the one I had in my mouth. With all the commotion, he didn't notice I was spitting. Shoot, clumsy girl, he yelled, clearly frustrated. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He sighed. You drank a bit at least, didn't you? I did. It was very nice, thank you. He seemed to relax and smiled. There was something utterly creepy about that smile. Okay, good. Soon it'll be okay. You won't even remember any of this happening." I shivered. I remembered the comments about my mother being drugged and not remembering anything. It made sense. This is the man who hurt my mom. "When is the team coming?" Don't worry about it. It comes when it comes." "Can I leave? It's getting dark." "No, you were the one that found the bodies. You have to stay and give your statement." He wasn't going to let me leave. I went for a Hail Mary. "Okay, but my mom will be looking for me. She knows I'm in town. I need to call her and let her know." He looked at me and seemed to ponder his options for a moment. Having someone looking for me didn't seem to amuse him, so he told me to call her. I took my phone and dialed 911. I stepped away, just enough for him not to hear my voice, or the voice on the other side, and lowered the speaker volume. 911, what's your emergency?" "Hi, Mom, it's me, Lizzie. I'm going to be late today." The responder seemed to pick up on my cue. "Ma'am, are you unable to talk freely?" "Yeah, exactly." "Are you in immediate danger?" "I think so, Mom. I'm not sure when I'm coming back home. I found something unsettling in the woods. I'm here with a gentleman. He says he's a detective, but I can't leave right now." "Are you being coerced to stay with this man?" Yeah, that's it. The woods near Franklin, exactly." "Okay, ma'am, stay on the line. I have an officer on the way. We're able to trace your call." "Yeah, no, I don't think I can." The man started to yell at me. "What's taking so long?" "Okay, ma'am, I understand. Keep the call going, mute the speaker, and lock your phone. Put it in your pocket and act normally. I'll stay here and make sure that everything's fine on our end, and we'll get you some help." "Okay, Mom, I love you. See you later." I did as instructed. The speaker muted, my phone locked and in my pocket. I sat back next to the man. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Mostly okay, I think." "Okay. In about 10 minutes, things are going to start getting better." "Is the team arriving?" "Huh? Oh, something like that." I assumed he was talking about the tea. I had no idea what the effect should be, so I just sat there, quiet and idle. I got lost in thought, and without noticing, I found myself looking into the distance. Finally, I see the tea is working. Let's try it. Repeat after me. My name is Alyssa. I didn't move an inch. Apparently staring into the horizon was what he expected me to do. My name is Alyssa. I'm 20 years old. I'm 20 years old. I live in Franklin with my dad, Rob. Wait, what? Was this guy trying to reprogram me? Was that what the tea was for? I live in Franklin with my dad, Rob. I don't know anyone apart from my dad who's here with me. I don't know anyone apart from my dad who's here with me. I could hear sirens in the distance. Apparently, he could hear them too, because he stood up and suddenly stared at me. You little bitch. Okay, repeat this exact phrase when I ask you to. This is my dad. We found these bodies while on a hike. I want to go home now, please. A police car pulled up, followed by another. 2 men with heavy guns exited. Hello, officer. What seems to be the problem? Identify yourself, sir. I was just taking a hike with my daughter here. Sir, identify yourself. Now. Just ask my daughter. I'm telling you the truth. Honey, tell these men who I am. I stood up, pretending I was going to talk to the officer, to repeat the phrase that he told me to. As soon as I was close enough, I sprinted behind the police cars. Please help. He tried to drug me. I was the one who called. The officers shielded me. The man, Rob, I guess, turned around and started running away. 3 officers sprinted after him, guns in hand, and the 4th one stood with me. Finally out of sight, I let my emotions overcome me and broke down, sobbing. You're safe now, miss. I'll take you back to the local police station. At the police station, I spent most of the night giving statements and describing the man so they could draw one of those portraits they do when they don't have a picture. I spent the rest of the night here because they thought it was safer to take me home in the morning. I called my mom and filled her in. She was scared out of her mind. Some minutes ago, my mom called me again. Honey, where are you? I'm still at the police station. Why? There's a detective at our door. He says he needs to talk. I thought they were supposed to bring you home. I've been hearing a strange song every night for a week now. Crazy thing is, I recognize that this song isn't even in English. I've studied Latin and Cantonese in college, but this song seems to be a mixture of both. The song sounds as if sirens are singing it. The song doesn't even rhyme. The worst part is, it keeps putting me to sleep and plunging me into a world of nightmares. I listened for over a week now, and I think the song goes something like this. There is a light inside your heart. Think about it. Your light is death. Your God is false. You will pay for your sin. Let us guide you, show you your true hell. You will know your sin, and you will be guided to better morals. I go to church every Sunday to find the answers, but I keep only seeing a trap door opening. I keep going to fortune tellers, but they never saw a good future for me. The night this all started was the first time I had the nightmare. The same nightmare I've been having for a week and 5 days now. This is how the nightmare goes. I wake up on a rocky floor that smells of brimstone. The sky is a deep purple, close to black. I wake up just as the world's sun is setting. The sunset appears to be beautiful. It's in a deep orange and purple range. Then, I see figures appearing like biblical angels. But these things slowly turn into clownish creatures, as though they were taking off their masks of some kind. I hear a childish laughter that slowly turns cruel, and after a minute, it's even crueler than that. By the 5-minute mark, it's turned into a fiendish cackle. The first angel says, "How foolish that your Bible has taken its full effect on you." The second one says, "Oh, you should have learned what a demon Abraham is." The third one says, "All right, sishet man, how do you feel about having what you've done to the true saints done to you?" Before the first insult finished, I would wake up in a cold sweat. I've been remembering this nightmare because of its reoccurrence. This morning, after I attended church, I felt a cold chill. Not like the usual chill. This felt like ice all over my body all at once. It felt like I walked through something. I found my wife at her desk, writing some sort of paper. I peeked only to find that she had divorce papers in front of her. "Martha, what are you doing? This marriage can't go on any longer. My friends keep telling me I should go find a more suitable man. Well, I have found one." "But why?" "Don't but why me, Samuel. My friends don't want me to be with you anymore, and I have closed my ears to reason for too long." "Why, Martha?" "Listen, Samuel, you and your religious crap can go to hell for all I care. You support slave labor, and you call for the elimination of my friends, and worst of all, you forced me to marry you just to make your church happy. It's time I listened to my heart and left you, you right-wing idiot." She stormed off then, luggage behind her. She drove off in our car and sped off down the highway. I assumed she was going to a court to go through with the divorce. Anyway, I decided to take a cat nap this afternoon and nearly crapped myself at the same nightmare hit me. But no song was sung to me that time. I went straight into the nightmare as soon as I closed my eyes. Maybe that song was an incantation of some form. After the nightmare was over, I decided to ask a fortune teller for help. And this time, I decided to listen. Samuel Hill. It's a coincidence my name is close to the one in the exclamation, "What in Sam Hill?" It's not too late to mend. However, today is the last day to choose your path. Will you turn away from the lurking light and the trap that Abraham has set for all humans, and let your eyes adjust to the dark? Or will you continue on this evil path and let the true hell consume you within the last few days of your life? Whichever you choose, it may not change what you have done for your cult, but your future will be affected by what your heart lets you choose. However, I sense that it is unlikely you will change your ways. The probability of you having the ability to turn away from the church and the deadly trap it has set is less than 1%. But that doesn't mean that you can't change. But if you do manage to know your sin and change and help others, come see me again. I will see the results of what you choose. I called my wife to tell her the news of my finally listening to her, and she never answered. I decided to call her friends and apologize for everything, but I think they blocked me too. I'm now certain that Martha thinks I'll never change. I tried everything for the whole afternoon, from when I had lunch to now. Notes on cars, sending people good vibes, wholesome drawings that let people know that they matter and should have their rights. You know, the whole shebang. But all I got in return was pure anger and stones thrown at me. Now I'm thinking my actions have gone so far that they all hate me. It's as if, in my attempt to change, I have wriggled farther into the trap. I've been backed into a corner, and I don't know what to do now. I've looked back on my actions and looked at all my behaviors in the past on the internet, and I've got the results that I was a narcissist, an asshole, and now I've noticed my own narcissistic behavior. I've been bawling for the last half hour, trying to figure out what to do with myself. I've been trying to change myself, but no one in this liberal town where I live seems to want to give me a chance. I think now I'm ready to die. I feel like if everyone's going to say that I'm a lying asshole, the only way left for me is death. I want to listen and be better, knowing what I've done is wrong, but now being the cishet white male that I am feels wrong. Feels like I can't have any more second chances. Should you discover this note, I'll be in the hell that I've been shown. My body will stay in this world, but I won't be back anytime soon. I'm sorry, Martha. Sorry, Martha's friends, Alicia, Tina, Ezekiel, Yvette, and Hella. Sorry, Mr. Johnson, my fortune-telling friend. I really did some wrong things in life, and I realized that what I did makes my attempts to change look like a lie. I noticed that if I can't change in anyone's eyes, I would like to say that death is the only choice I have. I hope you guys can find it in your heart to forgive me, but if I really am beyond forgiving, I guess you can just burn my body. This was the suicide note left by Samuel Roger Hill, who hanged himself in the living room of his house at 6:30 p.m. today. He wasn't missed very much. The only people that did miss him were the members of his church, St. Jonathan's Evangelical Church. Doctors say that he may have been driven to kill himself by insanity, but this has never been confirmed. I've always stayed sober, as that's a requirement for working as a bartender. You also have to know when one is drunk by the way they walk, the way they talk, and all that. Drunk driving is a major cause of death, after all. The local band was playing some good slow jazz that night. The van that arrived that day was a pretty red. About 8 or 9 people came out of the red van, a sign that they were carpooling. Apparently, the van's driver wanted to make sure that they weren't going to drive home drunk. The dive bar I've been working at always has at least one person going violent in a drunken rage, and last night would have had the usual customer going super crazy after getting drunk, if not for what had happened. The group I was serving was a real piece of work. Each of them ordered Twitch bitches and undying totes, and only one of the guys in the group seemed to not be drinking. "Hey, come on, Norman. Why aren't you joining us?" "Yeah, Norman, don't you enjoy alcohol once in a while?" No thanks. I'm allergic." The dirty bum slammed him down. "Come on, Norm. Can't you have a drink at least once?" "Nah," Doc said. "Sucks to be your doctor. Why don't you drink and have some fun?" The band stopped for about 5 seconds. Then they resumed playing, and I asked Norm about his allergy. "Look, miss, alcohol give me the hives for days. There's no way I'm going to be able to do it. I'm only here for the music. And the billiards." "Come on, Norman, that's BS. You know you want to drink." Then those guys started chanting, "Norman! Norman! Norman!" The man refused, even when they were putting the pressure on him. "Screw you guys. Screw you," and then one of the guys from the red van had forced him to drink. He pushed it right up against his lips and forced it down his throat. I should have known something was off from the beginning, but I just went on with my job. Once the drink got into Norman, his body fell to the floor and he started convulsing. The convulsions were violent, and I was about to call an ambulance on him when I heard a loud crack come from him. His eyes turned black and yellow. His normal clean teeth were replaced with sharp yellow fangs. His ginger-colored hair became rough spines and horns. The rest of him made me want to vomit into the nearby trash can. The normal human body with the torso and legs and arms was replaced with something like that of a wolf, but more oily and with claws all over. None of the other guys were aware. They were all too drunk to realize what was going on. The monster that was Norman roared so loud that the band stopped playing, and each band member stared at him with a horrified look on their face. All the other employees were staring in shock as the Norman monster slashed each of the customers to pieces. I reached for my rifle and kept on shooting the Norman monster, but he just wouldn't die. The dive bar owner finally lost it when one of my coworkers got beheaded. The Norman monster kept swinging his claws on all the drunken bums, and they were all bleeding out. It was when the local police officer showed up with a strong tranquilizer gun that he finally got calm. The monster went to sleep by the tranquilizer darts, and once he fell asleep, he changed back into Norman. The incident never made it past the local paper. Normally something this crazy would have made the national news, but it didn't. The bar is currently closed for cleanup and sanitation, so that none of us get sick from the COVID-19. I'm on paid leave for until the bar opens again, since the owner is responsible for the damages caused. I have no involvement in the incident, other than serving the drinks to those guys. But now, I seem to have an aversion to alcohol. Not to serving it, but to drinking it. Every time I see a drink, my own guts keep hurting like I shouldn't be near it. I think Norman's infection may have transferred over to me. I know what you must be thinking. What a horrible person. I know, I've thought it too. The fact I'm genuinely thinking about sending away my dog makes me feel pretty guilty. Then I remember what he's been doing, and my guilt is replaced with fear. This started about a month ago. I came home early from work one day, absolutely furious, and clutching a parting gift from my boss. My Christmas bonus was a ham or something. I sighed with a hand pressed firmly against my throbbing temple and placed the mystery meat in the fridge. The pounding behind my eyes got more and more intense until I leveled my fist and punched the fridge. The throbbing in my head didn't go away, but there was a new guest, as it was now accompanied by the pain in my knuckles. I let out a deep sigh that was childish. It was at that moment that Rufus came padding in, his big brown eyes gazing up at me, as if wondering what that noise had been. "Your dad was pretty dumb just now," I said, crouching down to run my hands across his thick fur. He wagged his tail and let out an excited noise as I petted him. I raised my eyebrows. I wish I could just curl up in a ball and chill like you do. Rufus, of course, paid no mind to this, and after realizing he wouldn't be receiving more pets, padded away back to his comfortable bed. I rolled my eyes and took a deep breath. While disappointing, this whole Christmas bonus thing wasn't the end of the world. Sure, my boss was an evil prick, but I had a whole 2 weeks of paid vacation stored up, and he couldn't stop me from using it. So, screw him. I'm gonna relax and spend my vacation doing whatever I want. How about it, Rufus? Wanna do nothing? I asked loudly. Rufus simply yawned. It was the next morning that I discovered that the mystery meat was still in my fridge. I peeled back the wrapped paper to see a red mass bundled in saran wrap. I furrowed my brow. Gotta be beef. Rufus sat at my side, eagerly waiting. I'm not a butcher. How would I know what it is? I'll just fry it? Everything tastes good fried with onions. I leaned down and booped Rufus's snoot. I bet you would taste good fried with onions too. He agreed as his tail wagged back and forth. Well, don't you have a high opinion of yourself? I cut off a large chunk of the mystery meat and threw it in a pan with onions, salt, pepper, and butter. I hope you taste good, Christmas bonus, because you don't really look that great. I probably talk to myself too much. Having a full conversation probably isn't healthy. I raised my eyebrow and decided to turn on the TV for my own sanity. It blinked on to a cooking channel. I glared at the TV. Don't you shame me. Then I flipped to the news and got right back to frying the beef. Thoughts and prayers go out to the victims and families of the late... I looked down at the large mass of beef left over. Hey, Rufus, I picked up a raw slab. Want something to chew on? He dashed on over like any dog would when presented with a hunk of meat. All right, you want it? Sit, I commanded with my most authoritative voice. Rufus gave no care, lunging upward and snagging it from my hand. Hey, I said, laughing, that was rude. Rufus took one last look at me before tearing into the beef with vigor. Still chuckling to myself, I once again turned back to the news. The search is still on for Maya Kelling, a local who was reported missing on December 14th by her boyfriend. She was in the Beluva area, and anyone with information is encouraged to call this number. I shut it off. The news is so depressing. Rufus paid me no mind, as he continued munching away with that playful ferocity of a domesticated animal. I took a deep breath and went to have a smell of the beef. It smelled god-awful. Jesus, what did I do to this thing? There was something deeply off-putting about that smell. It didn't smell rotten or decayed. It smelled foreign. It filled me with apprehension and a strange sense of dread. I shook my head and felt a wave of stupidity roll over me. The feeling was not too dissimilar when you were watching a scary YouTube video at night by yourself and you want to turn the lights on. I felt like a little bitch, but the feeling of nervousness and the fact that no one but me would judge me for throwing all this meat out made my decision easy. This was going straight into the garbage. I threw it in and did my utmost to forget about it. Take out it is. Having stuffed myself with pizza, I crashed hard. I'm a heavy sleeper, so it takes a lot to wake me up. Yet, I was woken up. A loud crash echoed through my bedroom as I shot bolt upright and listened for a moment. I heard dragging noises. My heart pounded in my chest. I stood, having armed myself with my pistol. I took a couple of careful steps forward. The noise became more distinguished. There was a gnawing and an eager snort. A sense of dread filled me as I rounded the corner, expecting the worst. "Rufus!" I shouted, seeing an absolutely devastating mess. He had torn open the trash, and it was scattered everywhere. I groaned and slumped my shoulders. "Not only did you scare the crap out of me, I'm also gonna have to clean up your friggin' mess. Come on, man." Rufus had pillaged what he was looking for and scampered off without even looking at me. Having fully cleaned up the mess, I stood up and stretched, cracking my back in a few places. "You're an ass for that," I said as I washed my hands. "I'm going back to bed. Good night. Love you," I trailed off. Rufus was sitting on his bed, gnawing on something. "Hey, what do you have there?" I walked forward and reached down. To my great surprise, it was the first time I was greeted by a low growl. "Hey now," I said, my words barely making it out of my throat because of the immediate surprise and fear. I took a few steps back and knelt down to get a good view of what he was gnawing on. The mystery meat. I reached forward tentatively and got met with the same low growl as before. "Rufus, come on, give me that. I think it's bad." But what Rufus did next sent a chill down my spine. He simply stopped gnawing on it and stared me dead in my eyes. No more movement, no tail wagging, nothing. I must have sat there for 30 seconds before I did anything. I stood up, forcing myself to turn around despite every single fiber of my being telling me not to take my eyes off of him. "Fine, have it your way." I couldn't help but take a peek over my shoulder as I walked away. He sat motionless, his eyes still locked onto mine. I turned on my light and closed my door, lying in bed until my eyes got too heavy to keep open. After waking up, it took a few seconds to recollect the night before. When I did, I fully opened my door to reveal Rufus curled up in a ball. He was curled up in his dog bed, fast asleep. I felt the weary tension within me wither away. "I need to get out of the house," I muttered. I came home that night to a dark abode. Having been drinking, my bearings were slightly askew, and I found myself fumbling with my keys a bit. As I pushed open the door to my house, I was greeted by an unfriendly darkness, that settled itself over an empty house. I pawed for the light switch for a moment, until I found it, flipping it on with my one hand. "Crap!" I cried in fear, as my gaze was met by a great black mass standing in the middle of the living room. It wobbled slightly, as if unsure of its footing, before it fell to all fours. "Rufus?" I cried, my heart playing in my ribcage like a bongo. What the hell were you doing, you creepy-ass mutt?" Rufus just stared, tail stationary, eyes fixated on me. I'm gonna go relax." "Cut that out." Rufus didn't blink. Neither did I. I slammed my door closed and sat on the edge of my bed, taken aback. Jesus, that was friggin' scary. As I took off my shoes, the image of the shadows in the dark, form stretched in a way it wasn't supposed to, made my skin crawl. I've seen dogs standing up before, but in that goofy cute way. Hell, I've even seen dogs do a headstand. But this, standing in the middle of the room in the dark, just staring at the door, it unsettled me to my core. My sleep was troubled, as if I had a nightmare I couldn't quite remember. I woke up to that feeling of unease creeping its way back up my spine. To stall, I scrolled through the news, but nothing could take my mind off of it. Not Bitcoin plunging in value, not the disappearance of that local girl, not Taco Bell bringing back the nacho fries. I just kept imagining what Rufus must be doing at any given moment. Standing there. Just standing there. I growled and punched my pillow. I'm acting like a wuss. Gotta get up. I rolled out of bed and crept to my door, heart pounding. I stared at the handle and reached my hand out slowly, my heart beginning to thump against my chest at an increased tempo, with a deep breath that caught in my chest as I eased the door open. I felt fear jolt through my body as I saw him, standing once again in the middle of the living room, his furry back to me, as he stood absolutely motionless, staring at the wall. My words caught in my throat before I could speak. I did the worst possible thing I could have possibly done, and quietly closed the bedroom door. The fear began to set in worse. I locked my door and collapsed on my bed, breathing fast. He was out there, standing upright. I couldn't open that door again. I couldn't make it out of the house. Not with him there. Not with him just standing there. I found myself nauseous with terror that had possessed my body. I sat there staring at the door for the better part of an hour, before finally getting up the courage to once again check outside. I crept closer, each footfall on the soft carpet surely giving me away to the keen ears of Rufus. My heart pounded in near apoplectic terror as I once again laid my hands on the knob. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to open the door. Once it did, I peered through the crack to try and see where he might be. Still standing. Trying my best to summon fury, I opened the door wide and shouted, "Rufus!" All the anger I summoned was turned into terror vapors when Rufus slowly turned his head to face me. He turned his body next. He took a step. He took another one. And another. I screamed in horror as he began marching towards me, off kilter, one step at a time. I once more slammed the door and locked it, stumbling backwards in panic. I didn't hear a sound at my door, but I saw the shadow of something standing there. "Rufus, stop it right now!" It was met with silence again. I was met with a terrible sound. It sounded like when a dog yawns and their voice stretches and bends. But this had purpose. This wasn't just a noise. It was measured, meaningful. "Get out of my house!" I screamed in terror as it continued. "Get out now!" The sound stopped. The shadow at my door was slowly and clumsily plodding away. I shook, my breath coming in gasps. I stayed awake in my room for the rest of the day, until finally thirst gripped me and I couldn't bear it any longer. I left the room, armed with the small pistol I keep for safety. There he was, curled up in his dog bed, fast asleep. I kept my eyes locked on him as I tiptoed around, gathering food and water before dashing to my room. I typed this now to you, asking the community of people who deal with these things. If I call the cops, they'll call animal control. They'll either laugh in my face or simply take Rufus. I don't want that. I want my Rufus back, my good boy. What's happening to him? Why is he like this?